Welcome to Travel Babble with Basha. I am Basha, and today I'm going to review the third Inside Stateroom that I stayed on a recent trip on the Norwegian Spirit to Alaska. I booked it approximately a week and a half before my first cruise started. This review is of the cabin that I stayed in the third week. I did have to change cabins each week because of that last minute booking, but that gave me a chance to see 3 different inside cabins. This cabin was on deck 11, so the cabin number was 11167. Of the 3, this was my favorite. Now, part of it may seem strange because my least favorite was the first one, and this cabin was basically the same. However, I found something that I could do to make it better, plus there was an added feature that I really liked about the location. This cabin is for 4 people. Now, I will say, if you have 4 people in there, it's going to be a little crowded, especially if it's for adults or even 2 adults and 2 teenagers, just because of the way it's laid out. However, if you're out and about, it may not make a difference. When I first walked in, and I traveled solo, and I noticed that the beds were split apart into 2 twins, one against each wall. My first reaction was, where's the room steward? I want the beds together. The room steward was busy. I started getting busy unpacking, and I thought, why not try it? Let's try the 2 separate beds. I've slept that way before when I traveled with a buddy, so why not try it with just myself? I can always change it in the middle of the week if I don't like it. It was the best decision that I made. That wasn't even my decision. Somebody must have been watching over when they split the beds. I loved it. The third bed in the room is on one of the walls and it drops down. So I chose the bed that was not underneath that section. Now, I never brought that bed down, but it would have still been possibly in the way a little bit if I was sleeping on the bed underneath it. So I chose the bed on the other side of the room. Great, again, decision on my part. The bed that dropped down was magnetic, so I did use it to do some decorations. Then I put my pillow, my blanket on my bed on the other side of the room. The other bed that was under the drop-down bed, I used if I wanted to put out my clothes or something for the next day. I like to be organized, so I tried not to let things just accumulate there. But if you're by yourself and you want to use that as a place to store items or put some of your clothes, it definitely could be used that way. I used it more as a, let's put something there, I'll pick it up, I'll put it on in the morning, and it stayed there. So I didn't really use that bed much, but that was fine. I enjoyed having the bed on the other side. I was a little worried about sleeping in it as a twin. Like I said, I have when I've traveled with somebody else, but I spoil myself when I'm by myself. The nice thing was the nightstands that usually are on the outsides of the bed were on the insides between the 2. And I was able to put my tablet, I was able to put my water bottle, anything that I needed on there instead of on the bed with me. That gave me the convenience, but not having to worry about them being on the bed and would I roll over and hit them or knock something over. It was just convenient. The other thing that was convenient was the lights that were also in the room and by the bed, the little pin lights, they also had USB ports. So for my tablet, I could run the USB port. I had a very long cord from over top of the bed that I was not using coming across. That way it wasn't going to cross my head or my pillow where I could get tangled up in it, but I could still get my tablet charged and not have it dying as I'm watching videos in the evening. Other parts of this room that were nice as you walked in, of course, there was the closet, there was the shelves, there were plenty of shelves. The life jackets were up on top, no problem. There was a safe that I could use, again, no problem. In my first stateroom, there was a chair that folded out into another bed that I hated. And it wasn't that I hated the chair because I only used it to put stuff on or even not really much there. But in this room, it was at the end of the bed that I was sleeping in. I used it to keep like a pair of sweats or something that I was going to sleep in that night depending on how cold or how warm it was. Right there. In the first room, I had trouble getting past it because of the way that the room was configured. With this room being configured with the beds split apart and the big walkway in the middle, that chair was not a problem because it was pushed out and it was at the end of the bed. That's why I'm saying having these beds, if I was even by myself, was wonderful. I felt like it was a bigger room, even though it really wasn't. But with that space in the middle, it definitely felt like a bigger room. And that extra chair, which is where your fourth person would sleep, that chair would fold out and your fourth person would be on it. Now, it would be a small chair for that person. They would be very narrow. If it was a child, it probably would not be a problem. But for an adult, it might be a tight fit. But having that chair over to the side at the end of my bed and having the bed split apart really opened up this room. So I have a feeling if I'm in an inside room that's small like this again, I may try this, opening up and having the bed separated. The room did get hot at times and did get cold at times. I tried to adjust the thermostat. I'm not sure if it was just making me feel better that I felt like I was adjusting the temperature because I'm not really sure how much it adjusted. There was also a desk in the room, had some outlets. I use an extension cord, so I always have plenty of outlets, but there were outlets in there that were fine. Now, the best thing about this room, I was high enough that I wasn't hearing things from the theater, even though I was over the theater, but I was several decks up. I felt like I had a balcony, even though I didn't. When you went out the door to my stateroom, I was the very last room on the aft of the ship that was inside. As soon as you walked out, there was another sliding door that opened onto the back deck that looked out over the aft of the ship and over some pools. And it was never busy. I felt that that was almost like my private balcony. In fact, when I would walk out of my room, that door was motion sensitive. As I'd walk out, that door would open. It was almost telling me, hey, go out here. Go sit. This is your balcony. So I spent a lot of time back there when we were on sea days or maybe as we were leaving port, I would stay out there. It was a very convenient place to get outside. And like I said, it was right out. It wasn't as convenient as having your own balcony, but it was almost as convenient. I never saw more than 5 people maybe on that side of the balcony. There were people on other portions of it because it was a stacked balcony, but there were not that many people out on that part of the deck. The only time I really saw people, or it really could have been something that might bother you, is right outside as you went out onto that back deck was the ping pong table. There would be times during the day when I would hear people out there playing ping pong. Now, I was not in my stateroom that often. I would take a nap sometimes in the afternoon and I could hear them playing ping pong, but it didn't really bother me. It was muted and it was not like they were yelling and screaming, although there was no reason they couldn't, but they were playing ping pong. The only time there would be much more than just a couple people playing was if they were having some type of ping pong tournament or some type of activity. I was usually not around during those times. Ping pong has a time at night. I believe it was either 9 or 10 o'clock at night that they shut down the ping pong table. So if you were going into sleep, there wouldn't be people out there playing ping pong all night long that would bother you. Again, it wasn't that busy. It was Alaska. We had a lot of ports. People were off. If I had to choose an inside room on the Spirit right now, I was booking and the price was right, I would choose 11167. I would have my bed split and I would enjoy that back deck. I hope this has helped you make some choices. If you haven't seen the other 2 videos about the other 2 inside rooms, feel free to go back, listen to them as well. But my best week was in 11167. I loved this room for an inside room. The price was right. So all I can say to you is subscribe to my channel. Make sure you listen to the other videos as you go choosing your room. And then please go enjoy your trip and pack your bags.